two. Take 2 and 2, 1. This is as close as we can get to the base of the World Trade Center. You can see the firemen assembled here, the police officers, FBI agents, and you can see the two towers. A huge explosion now raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way!
There's something very strange about the way that these buildings collapsed. They collapsed from the top down, almost identically, in a matter of seconds, into a cloud of dust. You don't have to be a structural engineer to know that something just ain't right about this. There are just too many holes in the official story, and the answers to the questions that are raised just don't cut it. The molten steel that can be seen pouring from the buildings just before collapse. According to NIST, there was no molten steel. And what about the red and gray chips that were found in the dust? Apparently, NIST never knew about the red and gray chips because they never even tested for explosives. Most importantly, if the official narrative is bunk, then what brought down the towers? Truthfully, we may never know exactly what brought down those two towers, but I know one thing that didn't bring them down, and that's jet fuel. So what did the official investigation turn up?
This is John Gross, NIST structural engineer for fire response and collapse.
The jet fuel acted somewhat like a lighter fluid in a charcoal grill. It saturated the contents of the building. It burned off rather quickly in about about 7 minutes. But in the meantime, it ignited the combustibles on the floors.
I'm curious about the pool of molten steel that was found in the bottom of the towers.
Please tell me about it. Do Have you seen it?
Well, not personally, but eyewitnesses there found huge poles of molten steel beneath the towers. Some scientists don't think that the collapse of the building could have melted all that steel. The physics professor analyzed some of the steel, Stephen Jones, and he found evidence of thermate residue, which would explain how the buildings collapsed by means of pre-planted explosions. So, have you analyzed the steel for any of those residues?
First of all, let's go back to your basic premise that there was a pool of molten steel. I know of absolutely nobody, and no eyewitness who said so.
You'd get down below and you'd see molten steel running down the channel rails. Like you're in a foundry.
Yeah, like lava.
Like lava.
This fused element of steel, molten steel and concrete and all of these things all fused by the heat into one single element.
So I don't know that that's so.
There's video of it.
Melted around 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit. I think it's probably pretty difficult to get that kind of temperatures in a fire. So I don't know the basis. I can't address your question if I don't know the basis.
Well, NASA pictures, thermal images showed those sorts of temperatures in the basement.
Would you send them to me?
Why won't the NIST report release their collapse visualization analysis?
We were charged with finding out the cause of the collapse, and we found what happened. I think we've scientifically demonstrated what was required to initiate the collapse. Once the collapse initiated, the video evidence is rather clear. It was not stopped by the floors below, so there was no calculation that we did to demonstrate that, what is clear from the videos.
Yeah, right. Let's see what some other professionals had to say about this. This is Dr. Neil Harris, a chemist and associate professor at the University of Copenhagen.
In the dust, we found what we characterize as unreacted thermitic material in the shape of some very tiny red-gray chips. Most importantly is they're still reacting, and in the reaction they produce molten iron, which is the prime indication of a thermitic reaction. And if you can get this mixture to react, it produces tremendous heat, and this is what you call an incendiary. The red-gray chips, the unreacted nanothermite that we have found in the dust, is just an indication that there is something wrong. It shouldn't be there. And it is a finding which cannot be accounted for by any other explanation, any other process going on than this was deliberately put in the towers for the purpose of bringing them down.
The issue of thermate did not even reach, in our judgment, a level of importance sufficient to, in fact, do a detailed analysis. One, in order for a thermate reaction to take place, there has to be materials. And of course, building materials have all of the things that are required for thermite or thermate, because what thermite does is actually it melts the steel. In order to get that kind of amount of materials into the building and to actually place it, and for this reaction to take place, is unlikely to have actually happened.
The part of that I have trouble with is that if you say the building came down without any explosives at all, then isn't it possible that you wouldn't need a lot of explosives to bring it down if it came down with no explosives at all?
Repeat your question?
It's never happened before, right?
But it's the physics is consistent, it's sound, it's been analyzed, and we have the results, and we are very comfortable with our findings. I would suggest that the public should really, at this point, recognize the science is really behind what we have said.
It is the law of physics that things tend towards chaos. Collapsing symmetrically represents order, very strict order. It is not the nature of physics to gravitate towards order for no reason. It will gravitate towards chaos. It is very difficult to get a building to collapse symmetrically.
According to the official story, what should have happened to the towers?
The top of the building would simply fall off to the side and come crashing down on the buildings next door. And the rest of the tower would remain. That's what one would expect. Instead, we saw something quite different.
Yeah, that's an understatement. The buildings turned to dust. I remember when the attacks happened, one of the biggest questions that I had was, what happened to the buildings? Where did they go? There was hardly any debris, and all that was left was a giant hole in the ground.